It's 5:40 a.m. on the 12th of August 2025, northeast of Australia, just 150 nautical miles from Sydney. Alarms rip through a Royal Australian Navy escort. Multiple radar tracks appear at once. Sailors sprint to stations, doors slam shut. Above, an RAAF Pate Ampere's Poseidon circles, its crew calling rapid bearings. Across the horizon, fireballs erupt. The Chinese Renhai-class cruiser Zunyi is firing live rounds without notice. The sea trembles as shells crash. Australia and New Zealand raise alerts, while the U.S. Pacific Fleet quietly tracks from afar. 11 American carriers, backed by destroyers with Aegis shields and submarines below, represent overwhelming power, but they're not here yet. For now, it's one thin escort and allied aircraft against a sudden show of force. In moments, routine patrol has become a frontline crisis. The next minutes will decide if this is just a drill or the spark of something larger. In the Tasman Sea, shipping lanes carry everything from fuel to food, medicine to electronics. Every container and tanker crossing these waters links Asia, Australia, and the U.S. West Coast. A disruption here doesn't just touch one nation, it hits global shelves, markets, and security. That's why the Royal Australian Navy patrols the region, partnered with New Zealand flights and backed by American guarantees. China's sudden move, sending a Renhai-class cruiser, a Jiangkai frigate, and a supply ship to fire live rounds near Sydney, pushes the region into shock. For Beijing, it's a test. Show presence, normalize operations far from home, and remind allies that the PLA Navy is expanding reach. For Canberra, it's a provocation close to its coast, a warning that local defense may not be enough. And then there is the shadow of U.S. power. Across the Pacific, the U.S. Navy holds unmatched reach. 11 nuclear carriers, nearly 90 Arleigh Burke destroyers with Aegis shields, Ticonderoga cruisers with missile cells, and submarines able to strike from the deep. China has numbers but not experience. One misstep and the balance tips instantly from patrol standoff to global confrontation. The stakes are bigger than steel. Insurance costs rise when seas feel unsafe. Trade slows when ships reroute. Allies lose faith if promises aren't kept. For Washington, credibility is on the line. For Beijing, momentum is the goal. For Australia and New Zealand, survival means proving the South Pacific isn't a chessboard left unguarded. So here's the question. If you think the US and allies will hold the line, press 1. If you believe China's push will reshape these waters, press 9. Drop your choice and subscribe so you don't miss how this clash unfolds. 5:47 a.m. The sky over the Tasman Sea glows with dawn as the first Chinese salvos echo. Splashes land close enough that merchant vessels alter course, unwilling to risk a stray round. On the Australian frigate, alarms blare. Screens show a cluster of hostile tracks. The bridge falls silent, then erupts in orders. Deploy countermeasures. Chaff bursts scatter. Foil clouds, confusing radar, guided rounds. Water columns erupt where shells should have landed. It buys seconds, nothing more. Above, an RAAF Pate Ampere's Poseidon drops sonobuoys, feeding data to the ship. Bearings sharpen. The Chinese group isn't drifting, it's pressing. A Renhai-class cruiser, a Jiangkai frigate, and a supply ship hold formation, weapons hot. F-35 Amperes lift from Australian runways, engines tearing the morning air. They climb east, armed with missiles, if rules change. Over secure channels, American satellites and destroyers hundreds of miles away feed targeting data. U.S. assets aren't firing, but they are watching. By 5:50, the Australian escort fires, warning shots, deck guns booming, splashes marking a line. Message: we see you. We're ready. New Zealand vessels capture imagery, relaying it across Allied nets. Soon, every command center and newsroom will have proof of Chinese firepower at Australia's doorstep. The Chinese cruiser replies with more exercises. Shells roar overhead, landing closer. It looks like practice, but one miscalculation could hit Allied steel. The standoff is seconds from combat. Launch defensive missiles. The frigate sails open. Interceptors streak upward, crossing paths with incoming drones used as live targets. 2 vanish in fire. The crew cheers, but the scope lights again more inbound. Tension grips every deckhand. Reload crews sprint, sweat soaking through uniforms. Medics stand ready, braced for casualties. Veterans remind rookies, stay steady, trust the system. On U.S. screens far away, analysts watch. 11 carriers and 90 destroyers form the ultimate backstop, but they won't fire first. For now, the thin line is Australian steel and Allied aircraft. By 5:52, the deck vibrates with recoil. Sky streaked with contrails, horizon glowing with blasts. It's not yet war, but it is no longer peace. The opening engagement has begun. 5:56 a.m. The second wave comes fast. Radar lights with low-flying contacts, drones riding sea spray to mask approach. The Australian escort shifts posture, launchers rotate, turrets snap into place, crews grip consoles, eyes locked on glowing trails. Missiles launch, interceptors streak upward, and crack 2 drones apart. Fireballs scatter across the waves. Relief is short-lived. Several slip past, weaving closer. Starboard 5. The frigate leans into the turn, showing less side, tightening angles for defense. Guns, thunder, burst cutting across the sky. One drone spirals down, another keeps coming. New Zealand's vessel calls bearings. Overhead, F-35 Amperes dip lower, boxing the Chinese ships tighter without firing. The Poseidon streams radar and sonar data, keeping the defense net stitched together. Coordination is relentless. Avoid overlap. Leave no gap. 6 a.m. The deck shudders from near misses. One drone detonates just 50 yards off the bow, shrapnel peppering steel. Medics scramble below. Reports confirm no fatal damage. Still, the crew knows. A single strike could cripple the ship. The Chinese cruiser remains silent, its guns booming under the cover of exercises. Each launch is close enough to provoke, far enough to deny escalation. Australia cannot back down, yet cannot fire first. The balance is knife edge. Reload crews work at speed, sweat dripping despite the cold. Officers bark corrections. The captain steadies his tone. Stay on them, hold the line. Calm voices keep panic away. Allied analysts track the clash. U.S. destroyers further east stream data. Satellites feed infrared traces. Submarines glide unseen. America isn't pulling the trigger yet, but its shadow looms large. For Beijing, that's the point stretch pressure without crossing the tripwire. For Canberra, survival means refusing to blink. The sea feels like a chessboard alive with fire. Every drone, every missile, every evasive turn dares the other side to escalate. The price for losing isn't pieces, it's steel, lives, and credibility. And here's the question for you. If you stand with Australia and its allies holding firm, press 1. If you think China's push will force retreat, press 9. Comment your choice and subscribe so you're here when the next wave hits. 6-7 a.m. Just as the defense steadies, the picture shifts. The Chinese cruiser alters course, opening a seam. From that shadow, new contacts emerge smaller, faster, hugging wave tops. These aren't the earlier drones. They're quicker, harder to kill. Sensors struggle to lock, tracks flicker, vanish, reappear. CIWS ready. The captain orders. The barrels spin. One drone charges the bow, skipping like a stone. First bursts miss, second shreds it. Debris showers the deck. Another cuts low at the stern, forcing the frigate to twist, wake boiling white. The Poseidon relays bearings from above, but even its radar strains. The Chinese group offers no call. This is escalation masked as training. Probe defenses, tempt mistakes, force costly intercepts. The captain authorizes the third layer. Missile launchers crank open. Tubes flare. A streak detonates an inbound drone in fire. Steel rattles. Crew brace. Cheers rise, but new tracks replace it. This is the twist. China isn't just firing shells. It floods the battle space with cheap, agile attackers that drain ammo and nerves. For Beijing, every launch is a signal they can pressure endlessly. On the U.S. bridge, fatigue and training collide. Damage control teams stage hoses in foam. Medics pre-tag stations. The electronics chief rides the spectrum, jamming where he can, hardening links where he can't. Sea state rises, clutter thickens, and the crew fights not only the threat but the ocean itself. U.S. analysts note the tactic. 11 carriers, 90 destroyers, submarines in the Pacific mean unmatched power, but they can't shield every patrol. China's gamble is clear: quantity against quality, pressure against patience. 6:18 a.m. The last wave surges in. Radar screams with red icons. Operators shout bearings. The captain grips the rail. This is survival or destruction. Engage! Missiles streak from vertical launch cells, white scars across the sky. 2 drones vanish in fire. Another splits left, hugging spray. Deck guns thunder, tracers cut the dawn. A hit flaming wreckage tumbles into the sea, but more slip through. 3 inbound, fast and low. The CIWS spins up, its whine rising to a roar. Gunners brace. The first target shatters under a storm of shells. The second bursts apart seconds later. The third keeps coming. Adjust fire. The crew holds. Tracers weave a wall. At the last instant, the drone disintegrates, fragments spraying harmlessly into foam. Relief is brief. Then the frigate lurches, shockwave from a near miss. Rattles steel, lights flicker. Damage control teams seal doors, check compartments. Reports confirm dents and ruptures, but no lethal breach. The ship fights on. Above, F-35 Amperes dive, painting the Chinese cruiser. Their presence is shield and threat. One wrong move and real weapons fly. New Zealand ship broadcasts the clash, while U.S. satellites and destroyers record every frame. Washington doesn't fire, but its shadow looms over the fight. On the bridge, sweat drips, voices stay level. Hold discipline, eyes sharp. Panic is the enemy. Crews reload, hands steady on triggers. Training overrides fear. One last drone breaks haze, racing stern first. The launcher pivots, fires, flash, blast, spray. The target is gone. Cheers erupt, but the captain cuts in, not finished until the sea is clear. By 6:25, radar steadies. No more contacts. Smoke drifts, the horizon scarred. The Australians hold. The Chinese ships linger, engines humming, their silence louder than fire. Salt spray stings. Smoke burns the throat. But the crew stays on stations, rotating fresh magazines forward. The knife-edge moment is past, but only just. The battle proves resolve, yet also reveals limits. Each side has tested, each side has learned, and the balance is far from settled. So here's my question. If you believe this stand proves Allied strength, press 1. If you think China will only return harder, press 9. Comment and subscribe so you're here when the balance shifts again. 6:40 a.m. The Tasman Sea is quiet again, but silence does not mean peace. Smoke drifts, wreckage floats. The Australian frigate remains afloat, scarred but alive. Its crew leans back in exhaustion, uniforms soaked with sweat and spray, ears ringing from hours of fire. Survival is victory, but also proof of how fragile the margin truly island. Every merchant ship in the region changes course. Tankers and container vessels hold for clearance. Insurance firms revise numbers, pricing risk in a world where one Chinese drill can shake half the Pacific economy. In Canberra, leaders praise the Navy's resolve. In Wellington, New Zealand insists the South Pacific cannot be anyone's playground. In Washington, analysts weigh 2 truths. U.S. carriers and destroyers still project unmatched power, but China's drones prove they can drain expensive defenses at little cost. For Beijing, the exercise is success. Without striking Allied ships, China showed it can pressure close to Australia's coast and force reaction. For allies, the message is sobering. Capability gaps are not only about numbers but endurance. How long can ships and crews withstand swarms before mistakes mount? The result tonight: the sea stays open, but tension grows. Australia held, backed by allies watching from afar. Yet everyone knows this won't be the last. And the U.S. response is already moving. A carrier strike group leaves Pearl Harbor, another repositions from Guam. Virginia-class submarines quietly tighten their patrol boxes, and Aegis destroyers shift radar coverage deeper into the South Pacific. Washington signals: America is watching. and it will not allow Beijing to define the rules unchecked. The impact spreads further. Markets tremble, ministers rethink budgets, commanders redraw patrol lines. For sailors, it's simpler they lived, and survival means they'll be ready when waters turn violent again. And here's the call: if you think allies can hold the line, press 1. If you believe China's next push will break through, press 9. Comment your choice and subscribe so you don't miss the next clash.